Turkey and the U.S. have been close NATO allies for nearly 7 decades. That relationship extended across all branches of the armed forces, with the sharing of key military hardware being a crucial part. But in recent years, that partnership has stalled. The latest setback is a proposal put forth by 2 U.S. congressmen to block drone technology transfers to Turkey. The call follows a series of disputes over weapons systems that has brought U.S.-Turkey relations to their lowest point in years. Washington's refusal to allow Ankara to buy and produce Patriot missiles forced it to look elsewhere. Turkey eventually turned to Russia's S-400 defense system, which triggered a harsh reaction from Washington, including sanctions. And now, 2 U.S. congressmen have reportedly received the backing of more than 24 House representatives, calling for a suspension on the transfer of drone technology to Turkey. And to discuss this latest potential hurdle for Turkey-U.S. relations, joining me now from Istanbul is Matthew Bryza. He is a former U.S. ambassador. And from Atlanta, Ali Demirdas. He is a political analyst who specializes in U.S.-Turkey relations. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Matthew, 27 U.S. representatives have signed onto a letter calling for an investigation into Turkish drone program. What's your take on that? And is it likely to escalate and hit the House floor?
Well, my take on it is it's a group of very anti-Turkey lobbying groups led by the Armenian National Committee of America, which is the U.S. branch of the Armenian Revolutionary Front, or Dashnak Sytun Party. They're the people that blocked my nomination to be ambassador to Azerbaijan, and they really they're a very hateful organization. They used to be headed by a convicted felon, who was convicted of storing explosives illegally in a locker in Cleveland, Ohio. So that's what's behind this. What's behind this is this organization, which I've always felt gets support from the Russian government, by the way, is trying to take an issue that is a huge plus for NATO, which is Turkey's drone capabilities that have helped fight Russia to a standstill on the battlefield in both northwest Syria and Libya. And yes, were used by Azerbaijan to great effect against Armenia. They want to take this plus, which is helping Ukraine as well. And, you know, the Turkish drones are now being sold to Poland and maybe to other NATO member states, yes, to Latvia and maybe to Albania, and turn it into a negative. And they're doing so through a letter that they wrote to these members of Congress that was distorted and full of untruths. And I think there's a possibility, though, that it will continue to move forward for a while and could make it to the floor, because Turkey-U.S. relations are still so poor from Washington's perspective.
So if so, Ali, is this move likely to cause another rupture in bilateral relations?
I believe the U.S.-Turkish relations have already hit rock bottom, and this is going to be another hurdle. It is definitely going to impact the bilateral relations negatively. But what is important here is that the Biden administration needs Turkey more than ever as far as the Russian dominance-related issues. So I think it is going to get better once it hits the rock bottom. So
Matthew, talk to us about the role. What kind of a role do special interest or lobbyist groups play in the two-country relations, both in a positive and a negative way? And how much influence do they have over policymakers?
Well, unfortunately, these interest groups have a huge influence over members of Congress in particular, not as much over members of the executive branch. When I was leading U.S. Diplomacy for this part of the world, I knew the truth. I had my intelligence reports. I was not politicized. And so it didn't matter what money these groups were giving to members of Congress. I knew the truth, and that didn't have an impact on the policy that I was involved with making. But they have a big impact on members of Congress because they give them money. Mm-hmm. And by them, I mean groups that have a narrow set of interests, but care a lot and have a lot of money, because they're able then to outspend the organizations that may be more supportive of Turkey. And they're able to make their arguments in very often emotional and not entirely truthful ways. But once you get into the political arena, in the Congress, for example, it's very difficult to bring the discussion back to rationality once it's politicized. And there's a good example, and I'll stop right after this. There's a good example in this letter. In the letter, they falsely claim that Turkey and Russia are working together on drone technologies. That is untrue.
Yes.
What is true? Turkey and Ukraine are working together precisely because both countries worry so much about Russia. But once you get an untruthful statement like this one, that Turkey's working with Russia out there, then it's very difficult to bring the emotions back in the Congress.
So are Congressmen Sicilin and Bilirakis knowledgeable about the politics of Turkey's region and the security threats it faces?
Yeah, but they don't care. I mean,
Okay.
Congressman Bilirakis is part of the Greek American diaspora, and Congressman Sicilin, he's I don't know enough about him, but these things get to this level only once there's been emotional arguments made that have sort of become politically expedient for the members of Congress.
So, Ali, how has these anti-Turkey lobbies gained prominence in the U.S. lately? And is Turkey falling behind this public battle? And how can it reverse the situation? What should be done?
Yeah, the Armenian and the Greek lobbies are very concentrated in what they are doing in Washington, D.C. And it is literally the only thing that they are focusing on to counter Turkey. And I find it very disturbing that American foreign policy is being held hostage by those lobbies. I mean, the lobbies are getting in the way of American foreign policy being effective. It doesn't make sense for America to agitate and alienate a precious ally such as Turkey. I mean, when we look at the broader picture, at a time when Russia and China are challenging America and America needs allies more than ever, American foreign policy must be saved from the illogical actions of those Armenian and Greek lobbies in Washington. When we look at like Mr. Ambassador stated, Russia is very disturbed by Turkey's ascendance in drone technology. Turkey has sold drones to Ukraine and Poland. But what is happening in Washington is the Greek and Armenian lobbies are focusing on to damage the American-Turkish relations, although the American foreign policy needs to side with Turkey in this regard.
So would you agree, Matthew, will they be successful? Is Secretary Blinken likely to launch an investigation into these allegations if more and more senators join?
I actually don't think much will come of it in the State Department or the Pentagon because over there, as I was saying before, at the State Department, they know that this letter is full of untruths and lies. For example, another one, I talked about the Russia one, Russia, Turkey supposedly cooperating, which they're not doing. As Ali Bey just said, they're really in a confrontational stance. In that letter, if you read the letter from the lobbying organizations to the members of Congress, it also says in there that Turkish drone strikes were carried out in Libya and in Syria against Kurdish organizations that are allied with the United States. What they don't say is those drone strikes stopped Russian military forces, saved maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of lives in Idlib when the Turkish drone strikes combined with artillery strikes stopped Assad's regime and the Russians. And then they did the same in Libya when they stopped the al-Haftar offensive that was being supported by Russian troops, but, with the cover of being mercenaries of the Wagner group. Those are really important developments strategically for the United States. And these are cases where Turkey's drones really help NATO and the transatlantic community. And that's left out of the letter entirely. Secretary Blinken knows about all the things I just said.
Okay, so Ali, can you talk about what interests the American Hindu Foundation has in signing to this letter? It says Turkey destabilizes the global structure with these drone technologies. What's your take on that?
Turkish-Pakistan relations are in ascendance. Turkey and Pakistan are developing very close relationship. And naturally, the Hindu government is basically wary of Turkey's ascendance in Central Asia as well. So basically anti-Turkish lobbies in Washington, including the Greeks and the Armenians and the Hindus now, they are joining their forces to counter Turkey, which is very unfortunate as far as the American foreign policy is concerned.
Yeah, Matthew, we know there are lots of powerful Israeli lobbies in the United States, and they're very active. So is there a reason why they didn't join this effort, given their recent animosity towards Turkey?
There are a couple reasons. One, I think the Israeli government is well aware of who these organizations are and that what they're saying are distortions of the truth. Another issue is Azerbaijan. As Ali Bey was saying, Pakistan has strong relations with Turkey, but also with Azerbaijan. And of course, Azerbaijan has very strong relations with Israel as well. And so, in my experience over the course of the last 25 years, when I was still a diplomat, Israel and Turkey, you'll remember back, 15 years ago, had a strategic partnership. And even though the politics have been so terrible between Israel and Turkey, I also sense that in the Israeli government, even this current government, there's a desire to get Turkey-Israel relations back on track, as long as the rhetorical attacks on Israel can decrease a little. So the Israelis know it's not in their interest to alienate Turkey.
So Ali, last question. If this proposal passes, how will this complicate the relationship further? And could it push Turkey further to Russia and China?
What we need to understand is these type of resolutions have come to the floor in Congress and strained the Turkish-American relations before. What happened is the more the U.S. Congress pressed Turkey, the more the Turkish government has become resolute in dealing with the foreign policy. So it is definitely a bad move from the American perspective. But what we need to understand is the U.S. needs Turkey more than ever as far as Afghanistan and the Middle East is concerned. This is a bad move in Congress, but the Turkish-American relations will still continue.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.